Bryce didn't just forget my name. He was rewriting the org chart with me already gone. My name is Glenn. I'm 42 years old. I live in Dallas, and until recently, I was the senior field strategist for Callerman Construction, one of the fastest growing commercial builders in the Southwest. Or at least I thought I was. That Monday morning started like every other. Burnt coffee, early emails, a packed conference room. We had a 9 a.m. team meeting, the full development group, and I was scheduled to present. Not just a quick status update either. This was the culmination of 3 weeks' work. A full operations overhaul meant to fix the on-site delays we'd been bleeding through all quarter. I had spent my entire weekend refining the slides, the data, the language, 30 hours, easy. My goal was simple: streamline reporting from the field to the execs. Clean handoffs, fewer gaps, faster builds. I even rehearsed the key transitions on Sunday night like a damn TED Talk. This was my shot to reset the way Collerman thought about strategy. I got about 12 minutes in before Bryce interrupted. "Sorry," he said, blinking at me from the head of the table. "And you are?" I blinked back. "Glenn," I said, "senior field strategist." He nodded slowly like he was logging that somewhere in his memory, then turned back to his phone. "Right," he said absently. "Carry on." Nobody laughed, not really. There was a little awkward chuckle from the intern in the back, and one of the project coordinators shifted in his seat like he wasn't sure if this was a bit. But me? I just stood there, blinking at the screen behind me like someone had cut the oxygen in the room. I finished the presentation. Because that's what I do. Because I was still telling myself it was just a fluke, a slip. New VP, still learning names, right? But the look Bryce gave me, that shrug, that glance down at his screen like I wasn't worth remembering, that was when I knew. That wasn't forgetfulness. That was dismissal. Bryce had no intention of remembering who I was because, as far as he was concerned, I didn't matter anymore. When the meeting wrapped, I stayed behind to shut down the projector. Bryce didn't say a word, just walked out, still glued to his screen, talking to someone from finance. That was the moment it sunk in. I wasn't being forgotten. I was being erased. I went back to my desk, pulled up the calendar invite for the meeting, and scrolled to the bottom. No mention of my name on the follow-up. No "thanks Glenn" or "great deck." Just a summary of initiatives to be finalized by DevOps. And then I opened the project memo I had circulated that Friday, the one with my name in the footer, revisions tracked. The new version had none of it. Rewritten, rebranded. My name was gone. I stared at the screen for a long time, the cursor blinking at the bottom of a memo I had built from scratch. Every chart, every field report, every damn paragraph. Gone like it had never happened. That was the day I stopped hoping for a seat at the table and started building my own. I built the Archer account from dirt. That's not an exaggeration. I mean dirt, like actual red clay under my boots at 6 a.m., while city inspectors dragged their heels and half the subcontractors no-showed. 14 developments, $90 million in contracts, and I babysat every one of them from concept to ribbon cutting. I've worked Saturdays just to walk blueprints with mayors. I've pulled permits by flashlight in a power outage. I've settled contractor disputes in parking lots at midnight with nothing but coffee and a clipboard. I was the guy they called when the foundation cracked, the crane stalled, or the city threw a wrench in the drainage plan. And now I was being asked to observe. 2 weeks after the meeting where Bryce forgot my name, no, erased it, I showed up to a strategy call I had personally created 3 years ago, one of those standing Thursday huddles that kept the Archer pipeline on track. I walked into the conference room and found an intern, no joke, an intern, sitting in my seat. My nameplate was gone. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "I think you're in my—" "Oh," he said brightly. "Bryce said we're reassigning the seating to promote collaborative velocity." Collaborative velocity. It sounded like something you'd hear in a TED Talk about corporate yoga. So I sat in the back. I watched the meeting unfold like I wasn't even there. I wasn't on the deck. I wasn't on the invite. I wasn't even on the printed agenda, which was now being run by someone who used to file my site reports. When I asked later why I hadn't been looped in on the meeting prep, I got a shrug and a, "Hey, maybe just shadow for now, see how things evolve." Shadow, like I was some kind of intern myself. That week, a new performance rubric landed in my inbox, a glossy PDF full of color-coded blocks and KP. as I had never seen before, Bryce's new system. Quantified Strategic Impact and Engagement, QSIE, pronounced QC, because of course it had to sound like a Silicon Valley vitamin supplement. There were new rankings, charts, velocity ratings, engagement visibility tiers. It docked points for time spent in the field, penalized site visits, and the kicker? It awarded the highest scores to deck contribution, decks, presentations, PowerPoints. That was the future now. Your value at Callerman wasn't about solving field problems anymore. It was about how nice your slides looked. I forwarded the rubric to a buddy on the architecture side. His reply came in one line. Is this satire? It wasn't. It was a purge with a PowerPoint. The moment that sealed it, a week later, I was in the kitchen pouring the last inch of bitter coffee when one of the junior PMs walked up, clearly nervous. Hey, Glenn, I think something got sent to me by mistake. He showed me his screen. Subject, Polish this old school mess. From Bryce 2, Junior PM Team. Attachment, Archer Scope, Round 3, G, H.X. It was my document, the scope I wrote. My name still in the metadata, time-stamped last month. Field-tested language from 3 build cycles, forwarded like some relic. Old school mess. That's what he called it. I didn't say anything. I just smiled and said, thanks for letting me know, and walked out of the kitchen. But inside I felt something shift, something harden. They weren't just replacing me, they were already practicing how to live without me. If they were going to shove me off the ladder, I'd make sure I landed on my feet. I didn't yell, I didn't slam doors. I didn't storm into HR and demand answers or send off a blistering email to Bryce with bullet points and attachments. Nope. I got quiet, not defeated quiet, strategic quiet. It started with a folder on my personal Google Drive titled, If This Goes Nuclear. Inside it, copies of every field report I'd authored over the last 4 years. Screenshots of Slack messages where I was asked to cover for site mistakes, delays, safety violations. I had everything. Timestamps, edits, forwarded chains with my initials at the top. Then I opened a spreadsheet and logged the changes. One tab just for contradictions. Bryce's slide decks versus site realities. Dates that didn't match. Reports that were finalized before ground was even broken. Another tab just for people. Who got reassigned, who got let go, and which accounts got messy right after. At night, I'd comb through my laptop like an archaeologist. Every document was a bone. Meanwhile, during the day, I smiled. I shook hands. I took notes in meetings I was never allowed to speak in. I even helped an intern fix a formula in one of Bryce's shiny new metrics dashboards. Let them think I was fading, that I was checked out. But what I was really doing was packing. Step 1 was legal. I had a buddy from my San Diego days who now worked as a business attorney, mostly advising small firms on structuring partnerships. I texted him, "You in town this week?" He replied, "Coffee or whiskey?" I said, "Both." We met at a place off at 35, the kind of coffee shop that serves espresso and old-fashioned donuts and hasn't changed its decor since 1997. I brought a burner laptop. No work email, no company files, just my own notes, hand-drawn diagrams, org charts, timeline outlines. He listened quietly, then said, "First things first, are you bound to them?" "Texas contract," I said. He smiled. "So basically, no. And if you'd been in California, your non-compete would already be in the trash." I laughed. "That's good to know." We drafted the basics that night. An LLC, single-member, flexible structure. Nothing showy. Just a legal bucket to start catching what I knew was coming. Grayscale Operations. That was the name I gave it. Quiet, neutral, no buzzwords, just grit and clarity. Step 2 was the people. I reached out to Sam first. Sam had been my right hand on 3 major rollouts, one of the few guys who could diffuse a concrete delivery delay with a single call. Bryce had forced him out last year, said his field temperament didn't align with client-facing values. That's code for too smart to be manipulated. I texted, "Still got that list of preferred subs and city contacts?" He wrote back in 30 seconds. "Glenn, still in my Dropbox. Want the key?" Next was Jorge, logistics wizard, ex-Marine, who used to keep 5 job sites spinning with a laptop from 2009 and a coffee thermos that could probably survive a car crash. He'd been let go 6 months back, right after calling out a falsified inspection report. I sent him a simple message, thinking about starting something. You interested? He replied with just one word. Always. Then came the moment that changed the game. I was sitting in my truck outside the field office, laptop open, editing the framework for a hypothetical operations handoff model, when my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize, local area code. The message was just 7 words. Lunch still on next Thursday? Maria Chen, VP of Ops at Archer. The same woman who once pulled me aside during a site visit and said, "You're the only reason these things get built on schedule." She had my personal number. I didn't know she still remembered it. I stared at the screen, then replied, "Absolutely." "Same ramen place?" she replied with a thumbs up. I didn't celebrate. I didn't get cocky. I just added a new line to the "if this goes nuclear" spreadsheet. Archer, Maria. Still warm. I knew what was coming. Callerman had made their choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't leave crying. I left fully packed. Thursday morning, I arrived at the office 30 minutes early, not because I was nervous, because I wanted to control the tempo. My badge still worked when I scanned in, which was mildly disappointing. I half expected it to flash red, some security guy to gently take my arm and say, "Sir, if you'll come with me?" But no, just a quiet beep and the hum of the elevator as it pulled me to the 3rd floor. The invite had come 2 days earlier. Subject line, alignment check-in, Thursday 10 a.m. Attendees, Bryce, HR Greg, managing partner, and me, no agenda, no context, just that phrase. Alignment check-in, corporate code for "we're about to screw you with a smile." I wore a navy button-up and clean boots, no tie, no laptop. Just a folder with 3 printed copies of my release clause, the last draft of my Archer rollout schedule, authored entirely by me, and a pen that cost more than Bryce's haircut. I walked in at 10:04 on the dot. Let them wait a little. Greg gave a weak smile. HR nodded like we were at a PTA meeting. Bryce didn't even bother to stand, just gestured at the chair across from him, like I was there for a quarterly review. "Glenn," he said, "appreciate you making time. I'll cut to it. We've been reviewing our operating structure as we scale. Some legacy roles don't quite map to where we're heading." That was his opener. Legacy roles don't map to where we're scaling. Like he'd spent the night workshopping it in front of a mirror, Greg shifted awkwardly. HR began unfolding a packet of printed documents like a magician laying out playing cards. 5-week severance, NDA, pre-written resignation email. After a meaningful chapter with Callerman, I've decided to pursue new opportunities. Neutral tone, no drama, keep the brand clean. I flipped through it, page by page, not in a rush, just soaking in the silence. Bryce stared at his own hands like they were fascinating. HR offered me a company pen to sign with, branded blue plastic, the same ones they gave out at job fairs. I pulled out my own pen instead, clicked it slowly. Then I asked one question. "Who's taking over field ops for Archer?" No one answered. Bryce glanced at HR. Greg looked at his lap. The silence stretched so long, I could hear the copier down the hall. I nodded once, signed the papers, slid them back across the table. No flinch. No outburst. Just like that. 17 years at Callerman reduced to 2 envelopes and a non-disparagement clause. "Thanks," I said. "I'll grab my box." Back at my desk, someone had already prepped the standard cardboard carryout. 2 people from IT hovered nearby, like I might try to steal the keyboard. My login had been deactivated mid-meeting. I couldn't even send a goodbye email if I wanted to. Not that I wanted to. I filled the box neatly, my notebooks, my hard hat, the frame blueprint from our first Plano rollout, the stress ball Archer sent after we hit Phase 2 6 weeks ahead of schedule. The interns nearby didn't make eye contact, except Jules. She used to be my scheduler, sharp, loyal, faster than any assistant I'd ever had. Now she handled 3 people's calendars and pretended not to be burnt out. She mouthed 2 words. "I'm sorry." I nodded. Then I walked out, down the hall, past the silent desks, through the lobby where my name used to be on the org chart, past the glossy poster of Bryce next to the Callerman innovation pillars, words like disrupt and accelerate, floating in Helvetica bold, out the front doors, into the parking garage, and there she was, Maria Chen, standing next to my truck, sunglasses off, arms crossed like she'd been there for hours. She didn't smile. "They finally did it," she said. I just nodded. "Yeah." She held the passenger door open like it was already decided. It was. I didn't need to convince anyone, just had to not get in their way. Maria and I met at the same ramen joint we'd used for years, tucked between an insurance office and a used bookstore just off Beltline Road. No reservations, no suits. Just metal stools, scratched wooden tables, and the quiet hum of a kitchen that never asked too many questions. She was already there when I walked in. Same tan blazer, same neatly tied ponytail, same sharp eyes that always seemed to see through people 3 seconds before they spoke. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. "You look lighter," she said. "I feel untethered." The server brought over 2 miso broths without asking. Maria always ordered for both of us. That hadn't changed. She reached into her bag, pulled out her iPad, and unlocked it with a quick tap. No greetings, no small talk. She turned the screen toward me. It was Archer's internal transition calendar. Tasks, timelines, project splits, deadlines. Detailed, active, a living doctor. "I'm ready," she said. "Show me what grayscale would look like." I didn't flinch. Just pulled out my own tablet, opened the file I'd prepped, and turned it around. I walked her through it. Not like a pitch, more like a field report. Structure, staffing, critical path. A revised logistics flow for Phase 3 of their Stonebriar site. Cross-team redundancies removed, permit windows adjusted based on the city's updated inspection cadence. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she stared at it in silence for maybe 30 seconds, then looked up. "This," she said. "This is what I wanted all along. No follow-up questions, no legal review, no procurement delay." She didn't ask for a proposal or an invoice. Just a handshake and a nod. And that was it. Not a contract, a commitment. That night, I stood in my apartment, box of takeout in one hand, beer in the other, and called Sam. "You still got your project lead spreadsheet?" I asked. He answered like it was muscle memory. "Always." We talked for 2 hours. Not about revenge, not about sticking it to Callerman, just about getting things done the right way, the way we used to. No buzzwords, no padded decks. Just grit, clarity, execution. The next morning, I opened my front door to find a thick manila envelope on the welcome mat, stamped with a red confidential label. Inside, a cease and desist from Callerman Legal. Claims of client interference. Breach of intellectual property. Misappropriation of strategic frameworks. I read it once, folded it neatly, then took a sip of my coffee and tossed it in the recycling. If they wanted to play war, they should have started by securing their flanks. Because I hadn't poached anyone, they walked to me, willing, quiet, ready. I wasn't exposing them. They were doing it to themselves. The envelope was thick, but my lawyer didn't even blink when I dropped it on his desk. "This the famous cease and desist?" he asked, flipping through it with one hand while sipping his coffee with the other. "Yeah," I said. "Apparently I'm a one-man espionage ring now." He chuckled. "Well, it's a pretty ambitious accusation for a company that doesn't know how non-competes work in Texas." I leaned back and let him skim. He stopped at the part where they claimed I misappropriated proprietary frameworks and confidential internal strategy documents. "You mean like field checklists and public zoning schedules?" he asked, smirking. "Exactly." He dropped the papers on the desk and grinned. "They've got nothing. You're fine." What I didn't know was how fast Callerman was unraveling on its own. It started with a message from Jen at Ridgewest Materials, a supplier I'd worked with during the Archer builds. We hadn't talked in 6 months, but her text came in at 7:48 a.m. "Sharp. Do you even know who's running our account now?" I replied, "Not anymore." "Why?" A minute later, she forwarded an invoice. 6 billing errors, duplicate line items, inflated equipment costs, and one charge that quoted a competitor's language verbatim, including their slogan. Then came Jorge. He pinged me late that night with a spreadsheet. I recognized the formatting before I even opened it. Callerman's internal time logs. "Check column H," he wrote. I did. It was padded. Time entries that didn't make sense. 12-hour site visits to properties that weren't even broken ground yet. Meetings that never happened. and every one of them signed off by one of Bryce's new golden children. "This is what got me looking," Jorge added. "Thought you'd want to know." I didn't reply. I just added it to the folder. Then, a wild card. One of the junior analysts, a kid named Dylan I'd helped on board 2 years ago, called me after 10 on a Thursday night. I almost didn't answer. I was sitting on my balcony with a warm beer and a quiet sky. "Glenn," he said, voice low, "I have a Zoom recording. You want it?" There was a long silence. "What's on it?" I asked. "Leadership huddle from last week," he said. "Bryce told us to clean up numbers before submitting Q3 summaries. Made us rewrite inspection data." My stomach turned, but I kept my voice steady. "Did you download it?" "Yeah, saved a copy before they scrubbed the cloud." "Dylan," I said, "do you know what you just handed me?" "Yeah," he said, "I do." Then he hung up. By the end of that week, I didn't need to make a move. Clients started calling me, not out of anger, but embarrassment. "Jen again, I should have left with you." An email from a developer I hadn't heard from in over a year. "Are you the one behind Grayscale?" Even the vendors were talking. Bryce had tried to polish over the rot, but it was oozing through every seam. He hadn't just fumbled the handoff, he'd rewritten the playbook in crayon and handed it to interns. I didn't send out press releases, I didn't tweet screenshots or leak anything. All I had to do was answer my phone. The rest was gravity. I was halfway through a lukewarm gas station breakfast taco when Maria walked into my co-working space without warning. No email, no heads up. Just the soft click of the glass door and her heels echoing down the hallway toward my borrowed desk in the back corner of a shared industrial loft. She dropped a folder on my desk like it was a sealed verdict. Inside, a fully executed services contract. Archer Realty. Effective immediately. No legalese fluff. No vague scope statements. It was real, detailed, signed. "Grayscale," she said, "is officially taking over the Archer account." I stared at the signature line, then up at her. She looked exactly the same as she did the day she texted me. Steady, deliberate, impossible to read unless she wanted to be. "What changed?" I asked. She sat across from me, folded her arms. "We gave Callerman a chance to fix it. They didn't." Then she tapped the desk twice, stood, and said, "Get your team ready. We start Monday." That afternoon, I made 4 calls. Each less than 2 minutes long. Sam answered on the first ring. "Pack a bag," I said. "You're back." He just said, "It's about time." Jorge didn't need convincing. Already told my wife to expect late nights. "Let's go." Then 2 more, Alicia from logistics and Marcus from procurement, both cut during Bryce's infamous vertical integration reset. They were skeptical at first, until I said one sentence. "You'll never have to sit through a slide deck about synergy again." By nightfall, we were 5. No office, no admin. Just one shared Google Drive, a Slack thread titled, "Let's Build," and the smallest war room you've ever seen. An old folding table in the back of the co-working space, surrounded by second-hand chairs and a coffee machine that made more noise than heat. But we were fast. By Tuesday, we had the Archer Master Calendar rebuilt from scratch. Wednesday, we onboarded 6 subcontractors using Sam's old vendor matrix, the one Callerman never understood but always relied on. By Friday, we'd fixed 3 permitting delays and redlined the new build spec for Phase 4 in half the time Bryce's team had quoted. No announcements, no press, no LinkedIn posts full of hashtags and empty platitudes. Just delivery. Quiet, brutal efficiency. Then something strange happened. 2 RFPs showed up in our inbox. Anonymous sender. No company name in the subject line. Just PDFs, clean and direct. First one, from a mid-tier developer in Plano. Second one, from a materials supplier out in El Paso who used to rely on Callerman for every bid. The kicker? Both had original Callerman client listed in the metadata. They weren't referrals, they were exiles. Disillusioned, drifting, looking for a new flag to sail under, and they'd already found one. Grayscale. The email came on a Monday. Per policy, we'll need you to collect final employment documents in person. Thursday, 9 a.m., 3rd floor. Please check in with HR on arrival. No attachments. No, hope you're doing well. Just a calendar invite and an elevator location. I knew it was bait. You don't need a face-to-face meeting to close out digital paperwork, especially after a firing that came with pre-signed exit terms and a neutral statement. But I also knew they were getting desperate. Rumors had been flying around town about Grayscale Ops picking up Archer, and 2 other RFPs had landed in our inbox within days. Bryce needed a show. HR needed a witness, so I gave them one. I didn't go alone. Maria met me in the 3rd floor lobby at 9:01 a.m., sharp. She wore a navy suit with clean white sneakers. Her hair was pulled back tight, not a strand out of place. She had a folder in one hand and a to-go coffee in the other, like she'd just come from a client call, because she had. "Let's not stay long," she said. "I've got a call at 10. "Me too," I replied, even though I didn't. We stood just outside the HR glass box, pretending to check a schedule. Then Bryce walked up. You could see him from down the hall, storming like a man who'd just watched the walls of his kingdom crack. His face was red before he even said a word. "You're not allowed to speak with our clients," he snapped, pointing straight at me like a 4th-grade hall monitor. I didn't even blink. I just turned slightly, enough to let Maria take the lead. She didn't yell. She didn't flinch. She just looked him in the eye and said, calm as ever, "She's not your client anymore. We're done." Dead silence. HR froze mid-step behind the glass. An assistant holding a stack of forms dropped a pen. I think someone on the phone stopped speaking mid-sentence. Bryce opened his mouth like he wanted to protest, but no words came out. His jaw clenched, his neck flushed. Maria didn't wait. She handed me my folder, turned on her heel, and walked toward the elevator like the whole thing bored her. I followed. No shouting, no gloating, just closure. The next morning, Maria posted a LinkedIn announcement. Simple, no hashtags. Just clean black text on white. Proud to partner with Grayscale Ops as we move forward with the next chapter of Archer Realty's expansion. It got 200 likes in the first hour. Bryce didn't post anything. He wouldn't for a while. It started as a whisper. One assistant forwarded a Slack thread to a friend who still sat in Callerman's bullpen. That friend passed it along to someone on our team. By noon that day, I had screen grabs filling my inbox like wildfire. Channels labeled number, project status, and number client feedback were flooded with phrases like strategic loss, not ideal, portfolio realignment incoming, urgent audit request from Ridge West. Anyone know why? I knew why. The next morning, Ridge West Materials officially terminated their contract with Callerman. It wasn't just a breakup, it was a takedown. The memo they sent was a masterpiece of clean legal rage, 4 pages, bulletproof and clear. Terms like misaligned values, inconsistent reporting standards, and material breach of trust. One line hit especially hard. "We will not continue business with a partner who cannot tell us who is managing our accounts." There wasn't a single mention of Grayscale in the document. They didn't have to name us. Everyone already knew. From what I heard, Greg, the managing partner, stopped showing up to the Thursday check-ins. Bryce kept holding them anyway, but the attendance got lighter each week. Rumor was Greg started having one-on-one calls with board members behind closed doors. Phrases like short leash, reputation risk, and is he even recoverable made their way through the grapevine. Meanwhile, I was on my couch, barefoot in sweatpants, eating leftover brisket with Miles Davis humming through the Bluetooth speaker. My inbox was full, but I wasn't rushing. We had our Archer build humming. 2 new clients had slid in like stealth jets. No sales pitch needed. Sam and Jorge had turned the folding table into a rhythm. Alicia was building a vendor matrix cleaner than anything we ever had at Callerman. We weren't growing fast. We were growing right. Then came the Hail Mary, an email from someone at Callerman I didn't know. The tone was pure panic in a suit. Subject, proposal for strategic collaboration, urgent. I opened it out of curiosity. They wanted Grayscale to run their operations white-labeled. They'd maintain client-facing responsibilities while we'd handle back-end rollout, permitting, logistics. In other words, you do the hard part, we take the credit. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, not even pride, just because I didn't need them anymore. Late that night, while cleaning up task boards in Slack, Sam sent me a message. "You see this?" A link. News article. Major consultancy loses marquee clients after internal mismanagement allegations. The header image was a blurred shot of the Callerman office lobby. I clicked it open, read every word. No schadenfreude, no glee, just quiet validation. I didn't burn Callerman to the ground. They handed me the match, lit the fire themselves, then asked me why it was getting hot.